Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Weekly Reads, where we give you 5 book recommendations all in one show. My name's Devon. I'm a librarian at the Worcester Public Library, just like my co-host, Joy. What do you think about this weather, Joy?
Oh, it's really nice. A little cool, a little crisp, but great fall weather.
Yes, perfect New England weather. So most of the things that Joy and I are talking about today, you can get online through the Overdrive or Libby app for free on your phone or device. You can also use Overdrive in your browser on your laptop or desktop. And don't forget, we're doing physical pickup of items now. So if you want a print copy or a book on CD or whatever, you can just order that ahead on the phone or online. And if you're not sure how to do any of that, just call the library and we'll help you out. So now I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the books we have lined up for you this week. All right, so as usual, I'll be focusing on the fiction. Joy will do the nonfiction, and we have our coming soon title. For my first book, I've chosen Valentine by Elizabeth Wetmore. This book came out in March of this year. It's the author's debut novel, and already she's being compared to Cormac McCarthy and Larry McMurtry, which is a big deal. It's a best book for April 2020 on Amazon.com. The book is set in February 1976 in Odessa, Texas, when Odessa stands on the cusp of the next oil boom. The town's men embrace the coming prosperity, but the women know that fear and violence always follow. The morning after Valentine's Day, 14-year-old Gloria Ramirez appears on the porch of Mary Rose Whitehead's house, broken and barely alive. The teenager had been viciously attacked, an act of brutality that's tried in the churches and bar rooms before it reaches the court of law. But justice is evasive, which could lead to devastating consequences. This book explores the intersections of violence and race, class and region, in a story that reaches the depths of darkness and still offers hope. Told through the alternating points of view of 5 women, this unflinching novel illuminates women's strength and vulnerability. Author Elizabeth Gilbert said that this book is brilliant, sharp, and tightly wound, and devastating. Wetmore has ripped the landscape of Texas out of the hands of men and has handed the stories over to the girls and women who have made their mark in such a hostile world. This sounds like a very powerful novel. Obviously some dark themes in there, but also some hope. So it sounds like it's great. And if you'd like to try it, we have it in various formats. Here's one from Joy.
Well, my next choice for this, my first choice actually for this week is 1939, A People's History of the Coming of the Second World War by British historian Frederick Taylor. In late September of the year 1938, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, a dapper English gentleman named Neville Chamberlain, stepped off a plane at an airfield near London, brandishing a piece of paper containing news that all of England had been anxiously awaiting. He had just returned from an exhausting series of negotiations with German leader Adolf Hitler over the fate of Germany's neighbor, Czechoslovakia, a new nation cobbled together after World War I from the remnants of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Hitler had demanded that the portion of Czechoslovakia called the Sudetenland, that was occupied by large numbers of ethnic Germans, be incorporated into the Reich, something that the Sudeten Germans very much wanted, and the Czechs did not. England, mandated by treaty to support Czechoslovakia, resisted, and many feared war, until, that is, Chamberlain capitulated and returned to England, promising in words that would soon become infamous, peace in our time. And German troops marched into the Sudetenland. Chamberlain's words have echoed down through the ages as an example of cowardice and treachery. a small nation dismembered, a bully appeased. At the time, however, Chamberlain was lauded as a hero by many ordinary people, both English and German, haunted by memories of a great war that had killed millions and had ended a mere 20 years before. Nobody wanted to relive that horror. Chamberlain, many believed, had pulled Europe back from the brink, had at the very least given peace a chance. Not a chance. Almost exactly 1 year later, Germany invaded Poland, and a second world war, even more terrible than the first, began. So what happened between September of 1938 and September of 1939, when war, at first postponed, became reality? Historian Taylor does a good job in chronicling the diplomatic and political events that led inexorably to war, as the realization sank in that Hitler was not just another politician who could be mollified by appropriate and reasonable concessions, that he lied shamelessly whenever it suited him, and manipulated the German people masterfully, that the vicious anti-Semitism that he preached and encouraged, while certainly not unique to Germany, had escalated to a point never before seen in any European nation. Where Taylor shines, however, is in his recreation of the day-to-day lives of ordinary citizens, English and German alike, as reflected in the diaries and letters they wrote, the film stars they idolized, the places they visited, the food they ate, and the newspapers they read. If, unlike German Jews, outspoken dissidents, and savvy politicians, they had the luxury of doing so, many did their best to ignore the ominous clouds looming above them and simply enjoyed listening to the radio, watching TV. Yes, TV. I didn't even know TV had been invented by 1939, but it had, and a few people had television sets. Purchasing an automobile, maybe the new Volkswagen, or vacationing at a holiday resort on the Baltic or in Brighton on the coast of England. And we have to ask ourselves, under the circumstances, would we have behaved any differently?
I like it when history books pull in information about people's everyday lives. That sounds really good.
Yeah, just how they lived from day to day.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my next fiction choice, Metropolitan Stories by Christine Colson. This book came out in 2019, and Colson is a writer who worked at the Metropolitan Museum for over 25 years. So this novel shows us a Met that the public doesn't see. It was called a must-read book for autumn of 2019, according to the magazine Town and Country. In the book, hidden behind Picassos and Vermeers, exists another world. The hallways and offices, conservation studios, storerooms, and cafeteria that are home to the museum's staff of more than 2,000 people, and a few ghosts. As a surreal love letter to this private side of the Met, Metropolitan Stories unfolds in a series of vignettes in which we discover larger-than-life characters and the powerful voices of the art itself. The result is a novel bursting with magic, humor, and detail, but it's also a beautiful introspective book about an ode to lives lived for art. The coworker who recommended this to me said the book is a glimpse into the world of art, neurotic curators, staff calf workers, statues, and prints that come to life, Well-Heeled Donors, and The Guy Who Prepares Boxes for the Gift Shop. The book got a starred review from Booklist. Author Andrew Solomon said, "It's written with elegance, wit, and flair for comic genius." Metropolitan Stories describes the museum world, and Coulson is a brilliant narrator. Her sense of fun, her insights into the human heart, her passion for art, and most of all, her sense of human character make this a delightful and rewarding book. And I know the Metropolitan was closed for a while, but I believe it is open again. So you can visit it and you can read this collection of stories about the Metropolitan. Here's one from Joy.
I have a friend who works for the Field Museum in Chicago, and I'm like deeply envious. And this collection of stories is not going to help. My next choice for this week is The Cold Vanish, Seeking the Missing in North America's Wildlands, by journalist and frequent contributor to Outside Magazine, John Billman. We North Americans inhabit a vast and majestic landscape, filled with wild, often eerily empty places, in which it is quite possible to intentionally or unintentionally vanish without a trace. In April of 2017, a young cyclist named Jacob Gray left his bicycle and camping equipment by the side of the road and disappeared into the recesses of the Olympic National Park in Washington state. Authorities quickly concluded that he had fallen into a nearby river and either drowned or succumbed to hypothermia. But the boy's father, a larger-than-life surfer, outdoorsman, rock and roll fan, and devout Christian named Aunt Randy Gray, was not satisfied. Over the course of the next 16 months, Gray, often accompanied by author John Billman, searched tirelessly for his missing son. Along the way, they encountered a dizzying array of eccentrics, adventurers, free spirits, psychics, Bigfoot enthusiasts, hikers, climbers, search and rescue workers, smelly bloodhounds accompanied by their handlers, drug dealers, spiritual seekers, and homeless folk. Not one could cast light on what had happened to Jacob Gray. Had he grown despondent and committed suicide? Had he experienced some kind of mental breakdown, become disoriented, and wandered away into the wilderness? Had he joined a cult, fallen from a great height, or been abducted by aliens? Had he slipped into a portal between this and another world, or been kidnapped by Sasquatch? Or had he simply, of his own volition, gone away on his own personal vision quest with no desire to be found? In America's wildlands, none of these possibilities seem as crazy as they might elsewhere, and Billman and Gray examined each one, however unlikely. Billman masterfully interweaves his narrative with tales of other souls lost in America's wildlands, some of whom were rescued, others who remain among the missing, and still others whose bodies were found and identified, often years later. Much to his father's sorrow and relief, Jacob was among the latter. He had indeed climbed a mountain, slipped, and fallen. Without doubt, our North American wildlands are haunted and haunting places. And Jacob Gray's story is a tragedy. But what distinguishes this book from other accounts of unsolved mysteries is the sense of awe and aching wonder that pervades each page of The Cold Vanish. Randy Gray, grieving father, said it best when he visited the place where his son's body had been found. "It's a sad hike," he said, "but it's a beautiful one."
I know missing persons has always been a topic of interest, but I'm impressed that this author was able to weave multiple stories of that into one book.
Yes, and he does so beautifully.
Yeah. All right, well, now it's time for a coming soon title, but before I change slides, please remember to give us some likes and loves and share our video with all your favorite book reading friends. Okay, so the Once and Future Witches is our coming soon choice for this week. It is coming out in time for Halloween on October 13th. And it's very exciting. We don't only have it in print in the catalog, but if you log into Libby or Overdrive directly, you can place a hold on an electronic copy right away, which I got really excited about. So this is already being called a best book of October of this year on Amazon.com. And it's being called a powerful novel of magic amid the suffragette movement. The book is set in an alternate world in 1839 where there's no such thing as witches. There used to be in the days before the burnings, but now witching is illegal and nearly extinct. If a woman wants any power, she must find it at the ballot box. But when the Eastwood sisters, feral Juniper, stoic Agnes, and bookish Beatrice, join the suffragettes of New Salem, they began to pursue the forgotten words and ways that might turn the women's movement into the witches' movement. Hunted by forces who will not suffer a witch to vote, and perhaps not even to live, the sisters delve into the oldest magics, draw new alliances, and heal the bond between them to survive. This one got a starred review from Booklist. They said, this novel cleverly connects the dots between the suffragist movement of the past to the Me Too movement of today. It's compelling, exhilarating, and magical. Publishers Weekly said that folklore and history enthusiasts will have a feast. Hey, Joy, do you know any folklore and history enthusiasts?
Well, here's one.
Here's a second. So if you're as excited about this book as me and Joy, make sure you get your name on the list, and it's coming out on October 13th. And that brings us to the end of our episode for this week. Don't forget that if you're looking for a book recommendation or you want a read-alike for your favorite author, you can just post that in the comments below and Joy and I will see what we can do. Otherwise, thanks for watching.
See you later, fellow readers.